It is 2 a.m. A woman is sitting in a hospital parking lot. She hasn't cried in 6 months. It isn't because nothing happened. Everything happened. Her marriage ended, her best friend stopped calling, and her mother told her she was too emotional, too needy, and simply too much. So she swallowed it all. She learned to be smaller. She learned to stop feeling. Now she sits in that parking lot, completely numb, wondering if she is finally fixed. But the truth is, she isn't fixed. She is starving. If you have ever sat in a parking lot like that, or on a bathroom floor, or in a silent car too exhausted to go inside, then what I am about to tell you will change the way you understand your entire life. The world taught you that your sensitivity is a problem. But let me tell you the truth. That sensitivity, that depth, the way you absorb a room's energy before you even take off your coat, that is not a weakness. That is a neurological gift that most human beings will never develop. It didn't break you because you had too much of it. It broke you because no one ever taught you what it actually is or what to do with it when the world treats it like a disorder. Psychologists have found that people with high empathic ability often grew up in environments where feeling was punished. Think about what that does to a developing mind. You were a child wired to be exquisitely sensitive, picking up on a parent's tension before a single word was spoken. And into that wiring, the world delivered one message: stop feeling so much. Toughen up. You are overreacting. So you did what children do to survive. You walled it off. This is the origin wound. It is not the feeling itself that hurts. It is the shame you were taught to feel about it. When you suppress a natural capacity for years, it doesn't disappear. It goes underground and starts operating without your conscious direction. We talked about how your sensitivity was pushed underground, but here is the most critical part that most people never hear. When you spend years suppressing a natural capacity, it doesn't just sit there. It starts operating on its own. You start absorbing everyone else's emotions while losing track of your own. Someone in the room is anxious, and you suddenly feel a dread you cannot explain. Someone is angry at you, and your nervous system floods with shame, even when you have done nothing wrong. You are running on someone else's emotional fuel, and you don't even know it. This experience of being a sponge with no filter is not what your sensitivity is supposed to do. It's what happens when it's been injured and never taught how to function properly. Now we need to go somewhere uncomfortable but vital. The empath trap. In communities built around empathy, there is a quiet story that circulates. It says you feel deeply because you are special, and other people are less spiritually developed. It says narcissists and users are drawn to you because your light attracts them. While there is truth to that, it leaves out the most important element. Your sensitivity is not just something that happens to you. It is something you can develop agency over. There is a psychological mechanism called the repetition compulsion. It is the unconscious drive to recreate familiar emotional experiences, even when those experiences are painful. Your nervous system learned what love and safety felt like in childhood, and for the rest of your life, it seeks out experiences that match those templates because familiar feels like safe. This is why the person who grew up with an emotionally unavailable parent repeatedly falls for unavailable partners. This is why you keep finding people who need to be rescued. This isn't fate, it's neurobiology. And the moment you understand it as a pattern, it loses its power over you. You are not to blame for your past, but you now have the awareness to change the program. Now I want to introduce you to something that most conversations about sensitivity never touch. And this is where the real psychological depth lives. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Put simply, your shadow is the collection of everything about yourself that you decided was unacceptable and pushed out of conscious awareness. For highly sensitive people, the shadow is typically enormous because when your emotional experience is constantly told it is too much, you learn to bury huge parts of yourself. What usually ends up in the shadow? Anger, Real, clean, appropriate anger at genuine mistreatment. Pushed down because anger felt unsafe or not what good sensitive people feel. Selfishness. The ability to want things for yourself, to put your own needs first, to say, I matter and my energy matters. Judgment. The clear-eyed capacity to look at a person and say, that person is not trustworthy. These are not dark or evil things. These are functional human capacities. But in the psychology of someone raised to believe their value comes from how much they give or how much they absorb, these capacities feel dangerous. So they go underground. And underground, they do not disappear. They work against you. The anger you cannot feel consciously becomes chronic anxiety or mysterious physical symptoms. The selfishness you cannot acknowledge becomes resentment that poisons your closest relationships. The judgment you have silenced becomes you ignoring every red flag your gut sends you about unsafe people. This is the shadow at work, not supernatural, just human psychology operating without your awareness. But here is the pivot. The relationships that broke you, the periods of complete numbness, and the moments of breakdown, these were not random suffering. They were your psyche's attempt to force a confrontation with everything you pushed into the shadow. When life breaks you open, the carefully maintained image of the endlessly patient empath starts to crack. And through those cracks, you finally see the fierce, boundaried person you were always meant to be. We have reached the threshold. Everything we have discussed, the wounding, the patterns, the shadow, all of it was leading to this moment. When a deeply sensitive person goes through a genuine breaking, by which I mean the kind of experience that strips away your comfortable self-concept, something extraordinary becomes available. Not automatically and not without effort, but it becomes available. The integration of your full self. Most people spend their entire lives presenting a curated version of themselves to the world, while the messy, complex, and contradictory parts live underground. The breaking event is the moment when that curated self becomes unsustainable. The people who go through this process and do the work to understand it describe a very specific set of changes. They describe feeling for the first time like they are actually inside their own life, rather than watching it from a disconnected vantage point. The chronic dissociation begins to resolve as the full self becomes inhabitable. I want to be clear. The work is not the same as the wound. The wound was passive. Things happen to you. The work is active. It is something you choose on your own terms. That distinction is everything. It is the difference between being a subject of your history and the author of your own life. You have already proven you can survive the passive version because you survived the darkness without a map. What makes you think you cannot navigate the active, conscious version? The darkness you went through was not wasted experience. Every moment of it built something in you that cannot be built any other way. The capacity to be genuinely present with suffering. Not the performed presence of someone trying to be good, but the real presence of someone who has sat in the same fire and knows what it feels like. That presence is rare, and it changes people. You were not broken by your sensitivity. You were broken by an environment that didn't know what to do with it. But now, you are learning to use it. You are not at the end of anything. You are at the threshold of everything. Stop apologizing for the depth of your feeling. Start learning how to use it. You are still here. Start there. भाई अब जाकर इसे कॉपी कर और फटाफट वॉइस ओवर बना. तेरा चैनल जरूर ग्रो करेगा. Good luck.